What's up, folks? Welcome back to the stream. It's Wednesday. We've been visited by the Warhamster, who has given us some new 40k stuff to talk about. We've got Grey Knights today, in addition to some, what the fuck is happening? All right. In addition to some Ork stuff, we have a new Ork datasheet from the upcoming starter set. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Yeah, I think that's about it. That's what's going on. I think we can rip the Band-Aid off this Ork datasheet real quick because it's like it's like really whatever. I don't know. The Wartrakk Datasheet is here. Let's go. What a time to be alive. This is one of the vehicles of all time. My hope or my expectation is that this unit is incredibly inexpensive. Comes in at like this really, really low ball top line profile. It's T6, 7 wounds, 3 OC. It has a shooter profile that's bad, and then also rocket launcher. Now the rocket launcher, like generally speaking, is good. D3 plus 3 shots, strength 10, AP2, 3 damage. That's pretty sweet. But a couple things we have to remember. First of all, it's not blast, which is interesting. I guess it lets you. It doesn't let you shoot in melee because this is mounted. So get wrecked, I guess. But it's solid into a lot of like medium and light vehicle profiles. The problem is that it's 5+ ballistic skill, and especially shooting at vehicles, it seems to me that 11th edition will see cover on vehicles fairly commonly. Whether that's going to work on infantry quite as often as it is now, I don't know. But because they don't have the full rules, but it's likely hitting on 6s, which means you can expect 1 hit on average from your rocket launcher. Even if you're not shooting it in cover, you're like expecting maybe 2. This can't be buffed by mechs or anything because it's against mounted, it's not vehicle. So I don't know. I hesitate to say it as with my full chest, I guess, because obviously a lot of things could change. You could see idiosyncrasies in the way the rules work, or faction abilities that are a little bit better here. But I expect that Ork shooting is just dead, right? Outside of the couple situations where it's going to be where you can get around cover and you can get around this poor ballistic skill. So like there's like Ludas, and you can get Gatefinder goggles, and tank busters get +1 to hit, so they like sort of get around it, stuff like that. But these like independent profiles that are just like throwing dice and hoping for the best don't feel to me like that they're the future, right? Now I do expect that this thing's very cheap if we compare it to something like an Invader ATV, which is at the time of recording 60 points. Is that right? Again, can fact check myself here. This is like clearly worse, like significantly worse. So currently 60 points, yeah, for less toughness, but more wounds and a better save, right? It doesn't have an invuln, but it's a 3+ armor, which does go a little farther in the land of AP or cover not adding to your armor saving throw. So this is 60 points. I would expect that this Wartrakk is like, I don't know, like 40 or something. And in that context, it might be good, but you're taking it at that point for the body and less for the gun, which doesn't feel quite as exciting. This thing's firing like a very similar profile, right? It's firing a multi-melta. It has a shorter range and like a shorter effective range, and it's only shooting 2 shots instead of between 4 and 6. However, those 2 shots are infinitely, more reliable because of that extra 2 ballistic skill. So yeah, I don't know. I think this is, if this thing comes in above like 40 points, I don't really know what we're doing with it, unless of course there are synergies that we aren't aware of. So who knows, chat? Who knows? We'll see. I don't know. Yeah, salamanders love Invader ATVs for sure. That rules. Invader ATV, unironically, extremely strong data sheet. Ork Wartrakk, I don't know, man. It does have a suppression effect, so if you hit an enemy unit, you can suppress it. The downside, it does have 2 weapons, so it can try to split fire. The downside is that it's hitting on 5s. So like there is a very significant chance that it's Shuda. I guess it's Shuda if it's in rapid fire, probably gets a hit through. So like if I'm within 9 inches of somebody, I can shoot my Shuda at somebody to suppress them. And then I can turn around and shoot my rocket launcher into something and try to convert 3 damage into them. Maybe that's fine. And you are potentially throwing like 8 shots at something if you just want to like dump everything into them to give them -1 to hit. That is very relevant. It gives them -1 to hit on all hit rolls, which does stack with cover, so it can be good in that capacity. I guess that's the reason to take this thing. Is like if you can run it up to somebody and hopefully get around their cover, and then just like shoot a bunch of bullets at them and get a hit through and suppress them, then you've gotten value. That's a lot of value. So I think that's probably the idea. But yeah, it is mostly going to be hitting on 6s, which is, I don't know, not great. If it had a Scorcha, that would be much better. Then it would auto hit for this effect. That would be very good. But yeah, I was kind of hoping that with the change to cover, I was unironically sort of expecting that Orc shooting went to Ballistic Skill 4. And I was like, well, in that case, it's still worse than like Astra Militarum, right? Because Astra Militarum can get orders for +1 to hit, and Orcs have very like access to +1 to hit, but it's in extremely low volume. However, it doesn't seem like that hasn't been the case. So Orcs are just, I think, a lot of times sitting on 6s, which just feel just fucking atrocious. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, chat. The main event today is going to be Grey Knights. And as always, we will look at their faction focus article as well as the video around it. Here we go. And I've gone to the liberty of going to 1 minute in the video, so hopefully we will dodge the intro section and we can just hop right in. So let's do that.
Your opponent to try and stop you. I think
detachments. We've got 3 to go through. We're going to start up with Argent
Let's
Assault,
go.
which is a detachment that effectively buffs your Paladin squads.
Yeah, Paladin's a little bit of Terminator synergy here. The Paladins from your army, when they're selected to fight, if the strength of your attack is less than the toughness of the thing you're attacking, you actually get +1 to wound, which is kind of huge.
So it lets you effectively punch up into the biggest stuff in the enemy army. So obviously Grey Knight Paladins, experts at fighting greater demons, that sort of stuff, but also excellent into things like enemy vehicles, dreadnoughts, knights, that sort of thing.
Well, it's an interesting thing because they come in at base strength 6 if you can't enhance in any other way. And that strength 6 is kind of good for everything, because at strength 6, if your opponent is toughness 12, is the only time when you'll be wounding worse than a 4.
And there's not much that's toughness 12, right?
Yeah, there's not actually that much. I mean, Great Unclean Ones comes to mind, Dominus class Knights. Apart from that, you're winning everything else in the game on a 4 or better, which is
Land Raider. A nice little Land Raider. This is great. Yeah, Paladin's strength characteristic is like the biggest issue with them. You typically have to include a brother captain to get lethal hits with these guys. In order to is that right? Is it the Wombo there? It's who's the lethal hit guy? I just want to make sure that I have the right character. What faction are we talking about? Grey Knights is what we're doing. Is it? Oh no, it's not this guy. It is the brother captain. Yeah, so we can get lethal hits on him, which is helpful, and that helps to push through. I don't know where my paladins went. That helps to push through the poor strength characteristic of their attacks. So strength 6, hit you 2 damage. They get that +1 damage to the charge, which is huge, but they need a way to convert that more effectively. +1 to wound, almost universally, is huge. So super into that. Let's go. The other thing that I think it's relevant talking about paladins with, and I'm working on a video talking about like faction, faction expectations in 11th edition, is the new psychic rules where you ignore modifiers are extremely good with a unit that gets 1 billion side cannons, right? So the weird thing about paladins is that they switch out their stormbolters for special weapons at a significantly improved rate. So for every 5 models, 2 paladins can switch out for a heavy weapon. So for a unit of 10, you can have 4 from that option, and then you get, for whatever reason, the Ancient's Banner guy also gets a heavy weapon. So if you have an attached character and 10 paladins, you have 6 heavy weapons. And all of those are psychic keyworded. So they're going to get that ignore modifier effect, which in the context of a weapon that is basically low AP and was previously hugely impacted by the AP or the save improvement effective cover, right? These guys were mostly just like, you started to see in these styles of units, and honestly, paladins weren't really well taken previously. You started to see that you would just take silencers for higher attack volume because the AP characteristic mattered so little. That you basically, like, one of the few benefits of psi cannons is that, like, their strength characteristic is a little bit better. Their damage is 2. However, you get that AP characteristic, which largely didn't make a difference. Now it does, and also either of these weapons ignore the cover effect already. So I think already Paladin stonks are up. Not to mention the fact that I think that there is a lot of consideration with characters like that can join them, like Voldus, for example, because he also gives you a -1 to hit effect, which stacks in addition to cover, because cover is a ballistic skill characteristic modifier. So you can have these guys be, like, in the early game, right? They can be hit on 4s, even by 2+ ballistic skill, 4s or 5s, by a lot of incoming attacks, and shoot back super hard. So I'm already kind of like up on paladins. The problem with this unit is delivery. There's not really a super good way to, like, consistently get them into the fight. We can rapid ingress, I guess, is, like, basically the way we're doing it. But other than that, like, you know, there's no, like, 6-inch deep strikes or anything for these guys. So you are having to play around, like, kind of a poor movement characteristic, which does, and I do think that for melee units, a movement characteristic of 5 is going to be very impactful, because I think that the times that, because charges are graded on a bell curve, where more difficult charges become exponentially more difficult to confirm, simply because of how 2d6 dice rolls work, right? You end up moving on a curve. The fact that charges are 1 inch harder to get and you are a slower movement than other units means that if you're ground pounding up the table, these numbers are really going to hamstring you. So I hope, I sort of expect a little bit that, like, move 5 melee units are gonna get a little hammered. I hope that's not the case, but I think that's something to keep in mind. But in any case, these guys are doing good for damage and everything, so we'll see how we go.
Pretty significant.
And obviously, there are a series of enhancements and stratagems that also work with your paladins. So the enhancement we're going to look at is Psychic Celerity, which gives the unit...
Well, you know what? Fair enough, chat. It's like, you know what? Move 5 melee units are having a bad time in 11th edition. And they're like, well, we give them +1 to charge. Okay. In fairness, this is any Terminator model, so it's like Brotherhood captains or librarians or chaplains or whatever, but it doesn't even have to affect paladins. That can work on anyone, which is interesting.
Unit +1 to their charge rolls, which is just a great flat buff, right?
Just fantastic to have. Very nice and easy there. Of course, you can be returning back to the battlefield, being taken off the battlefield, possibly getting a firing solution or an angle here or there, and then the more times you're going to be able to bring this ability to bear, the more times it's going to pay off.
Yeah, and then a couple of very useful stratagems in the mix. You've got a Threat Ended, which gives one of your paladin squads precision. So that's a really useful way to just basically pick out an enemy character and just get rid of it.
That's just good. Just get rid of him. 1 CP, make him go away.
I mean, obviously, you can give precision to characters in your army already, but the ability to give it to an entire squad of heavy-hitting Terminators is pretty much going to kill any leader unit in the game.
A paladin, just a single paladin, that hits on twos. They all hit on twos. With the +1 to wound active, it's kind of the same efficacy as a Space Marine captain with a Power Fist. And so 1 CP to give the whole unit of Space Marine captains with Power Fists precision. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I don't know if that's necessarily an accurate statement. I think a Space Marine captain with Power Fist is I guess the Paladins are higher damage characteristic on the charge, but the Space Marine captain will likely get Finest Hour. So he has like literally twice as many attacks and devastating wounds. I don't know. I don't know necessarily if that makes sense.
You've also got a very interesting stratagem in there, which is called Aura of Vengeance, and this is a slightly exotic way to keep your Terminators alive, or certainly to punish enemy units trying to take out your Paladins.
So this is very interesting. So 1 command point in the fight phase, when an enemy unit targets a friendly Paladin squad, that enemy unit's models have hazardous. So you're giving them hazardous to attack you, as in
only
a bunch
fight
of them
phase though
might harm themselves. Theoretically dies, or the models be removed. It's pretty interesting. What I like about this is that if you are being attacked on multiple fronts on a Paladin squad, so your Paladin squad is a huge amount of points and a large point.
They tend to be outnumbered, right? Like dropped in the middle of the enemy army, you've got foes all around you.
Yeah, and your opponent at times will collapse upon that unit with 3 or 4 different units. So what this does is, for 1 command point, everything that attacks you, regardless of how many squads it is
that's
going
not
to
what
take
it
the
does.
same penalty. So it's not
No.
doesn't
What?
it targets you, the Paladin squad.
Adam, no. It gives the enemy unit that is currently attacking gives them hazardous. This stratagem is trash. I like they were trying to spin it, but this is a very bad stratagem. I think there's some cases where you're like, oh, you have a couple guys on one or whatever, and like I can pop it to kill them. Like this feels like the 10% stratagem, where like 1 in 10 games you're gonna get value out of it. But it's a defensive stratagem that doesn't actually make you harder to kill. It punishes your opponent on 1 single unit after they've resolved their attacks. So all of their attacks are done. They've already hit you. Then they could take some damage. Yeah. If an enemy has multiple melee weapons exercise, they'll get hazardous. That is true. That is indeed true. But it does not affect multiple enemy units, at least according to what I'm reading here. I have no reason to suspect that this would work on more than 1 enemy unit, which is also like compounds with other defensive tech, right? There are a lot of stratagems in the game, that like reflected mortals in a lot of cases, right? Like brutal attrition from Fellhammer Siege Host affects you for the entire phase, right? Until the end of the phase, when somebody attacks you, there's a chance to take mortal wounds. This just says you use it when an enemy unit targets a Paladin squad. The enemy unit's melee attacks get hazardous. I don't see an interpretation where this affects more than 1 enemy unit. What a fucking god awful stratagem, chat. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I don't know. Horde, a lot of weak stack. Yeah, and so there's like a little bit of weird contention as well with the hazardous keyword. They talked to the Q&A about hazardous checks gaining
Adriong 6931 donated $2 through Super Chat. Oh yes, my greatest threat. Calls melee.
Yeah, we might deal a mortal wound to call. They talked about hazardous checks working on a 1 or a 2 for only a single mortal, which, in fairness, is more consistent damage from an effect like this than the previous version, which is 3 mortals on a 1. However, they talked about it in the context of Desperate Breakout, so they might have not been referring to hazardous. So I actually don't know how hazardous works. This would have been a great time for them to discuss that and put it in print, what exactly the new hazardous effect is, but they didn't do that. So I actually don't really know how good this stratagem is, and my suspicion is that it's fucking awful. So let's see. Yeah, that's yikes, chat. I do not like it. I do not like it at all. It'd be a third of the squad, but it's a third of the squad after they've hit you, right? So like, if I'm engaging you, with you know, all 20 orc boys, like maybe that's good. I'm rolling 20d6. I might lose 7, but they've already killed half your paladin. So you're like, I would rather have -1 to wound or armor of contempt or something, and then I have more paladins that can then hit you. I guess I guess you could use it like after the paladins have already attacked, but like the hope is that you've killed most of them anyway if the paladins have already gone. So I don't know, like then has just as a depreciated effect. Yeah, I don't know. This stratagem seems fucking atrocious.
And not the enemy attacking squad. So if they have 4 units, well, all 4 units are going to have to roll.
That's literally not what it says, Adam.
Huge amount of wounds across the enemy.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Absolutely massive.
It's very fun. So that's your paladins.
Not the first person
that
to
works with
misread
your
a stratagem.
purgation squads.
The universe.
Yeah, this is a very interesting detachment. So purgation squads have had a place. A very small, very
Let's
niche
talk
place
about purgation
in
squads.
Grey Knight armies this edition, mostly as a debuffing piece for their pinning ability that they have, where they select a unit that they've shot, and that unit will be -2 move, -2 charge. This works into that by giving them an addition ability after they've chosen their pinning targets. That pinning target will also now have to take a battle shock text at -1, and battle shock is a lot more impactful.
So this is
Nope,
basically
that's not what
a tool
it does.
to go right.
All right, this video is not helpful. This doesn't say you take a battle shock check. Oh, it does. It does say take a battle shock check. All right. I thought it said when. This is very confusing. I thought this said when they take a battle shock check, -1 to the battle shock roll. But it says when you select a unit, they take a battle shock check with -1. So that is pretty good. That's okay.
There's an enemy unit on an objective. I'm going to shoot at that unit. They're going to have to take a battle shock test and potentially stop them scoring points. So this is a game-winning ability, isn't it? This is not just like a few wounds here and there. This is a tool that's going to allow you to swing the points of a game in your favor.
In addition to that, what they're also doing is they're also still applying that debuff, that -2 move, -2 charge. So only now they're battle shocked, but they're kind of stuck there until you decide to go and remove them, I guess, if you want to invest more points in that direction. They kind of can't really move off that point effectively, but they're also not scoring any points while being there. So you've almost taken that unit out of the game for the time being, which I think is very powerful.
I think this effect is pretty cool. There's a significant chance, or not insignificant chance, I guess, that when you ping someone with a purgation squad, they could remain battle shocked for multiple turns, right? Which I think is potentially sweet. Purgation squads are interesting because, especially, I think like this is another unit that gets just fucking massive buffs from the new psychic mechanics. I honestly, Grey Knight's stock's like so far up because of the new psychic rule. Suddenly, Psy Cannons not being like an absolute fucking joke of a profile is amazing. Purgation squads become legitimately terrifying to like utility units, right? Because this is like you still have Gave Infinity, so you're able to pick this unit up and just bop them around the table to shoot random people. And now the chance that they kill 5 Space Marines with 12 strength, 8 AP, 1, 2 damage shots and ignore cover is like pretty good. And so having, like, speaking from experience, having small independent units that can teleport and have a good ranged attack is horrifying because it's difficult to screen them. It's difficult to get value out of your utility without opening up a line for these guys to shoot them. And it's easy for the Grey Knight player to put them in a position where it's hard to shoot them back. So a lot of times they can just attrition you. Like you'll get your utility unit for 1 turn or whatever, but then a purgation squad uppy downies, they go and they draw 1 millimeter line to one guy in the unit and they burst 16 shots at them. Right, like a Stormbolter plus all the Psy Cannons. And theoretically kill them. If it's like 5 Space Marine scouts, there's a pretty reasonable chance that they kill them. I think it's like 8. They went on 2, so they had you like 7 saves at -1 for 2 damage each. Pretty reasonable chance they knock out like a 4+ save infantry squad. I actually don't know what the math is on the Psy Cannon versus the Silencer. The Silencer is probably not better, but I don't actually know. I guess it depends on what you're shooting at. But in any case, I think that this squad looks a lot more interesting than it did previously. And now it's also battle shocking stuff. So let's say you shoot 10 dudes, you kill 8 of them, they force a battle shock check in your turn, and then potentially another one on their turn as well to take in any objective that they're stealing. This also, does their ability have any riders on it? Excluding monster vehicle. So they can only battle shock infantry and stuff, but that's not too bad. You also get a Stormbolter in the unit because you have the unit champion who has a bolter. So you can flip off like a insignificant attack to just hit somebody with it and force the battle shock check. This isn't like a huge effect. I don't want to make it sound like this ability is like changing the whole game, but I do think that you are going to value purgation squads and units like that much more highly, and so having the potential to get a bonus for them is pretty sweet.
Really useful. Obviously, again, there's some enhancements and some stratagems that bolster that unit even more. The enhancement we're going to look at is called Boons of Demos, which is effectively a purgation squad's ranged attacks have +2 strength.
Oh, that's sweet. All right, that's pretty good. Now we're actually like chipping damage to vehicles. Let's go.
Is a huge buff.
This is kind of massive. So, of course, purgation squads are
also it gives their Stormbolter +2 strength. Actually, can you still take 10 mans? Yeah, you can. We get strength 6 Stormbolters. Is that good? No, almost certainly not. Is it funny? Maybe. You're probably just like going to purifiers if you want to actually kill people with if you want to kill infantry. I don't know if you need the +2 strength purgation squad, but it is funny that you could take strength 6 Stormbolters in this unit.
the special weapons squads.
So you've got all the best guns, basically.
All the best guns. The incinerators, the silencers, or the psi cannons. Of course, the psi cannons being the one that comes to mind immediately, coming in at strength 7, going to strength 9 is a massive change.
Even just the...
What? Excuse me? This is strength 8. What? All right. They were like strength 7, like 5th edition, right? When was the last time a psi cannon was strength 7?
Stormbolters.
Yeah,
I guess
Agreed.
maybe
Getting pretty
9.
scary
Yeah,
with that,
strength
but
4,
any of
strength
those
7
guns
and
at
9.
+2 strength is great.
Strength 4 to strength 6, and you can have 4 of those special weapons in a squad, so you are magnifying their damage tenfold. Something like...
Wait, is this an implication that Grey Knights, the psychic weapons get debuffed? He talks about silencers being strength 4? Oh no, chat. Are Grey Knights gonna get tanked, actually? Am I talking up all these like cool psi cannons and they're gonna get fucking annihilated as soon as the edition comes out? Oh no! Everything's ruined. I'm gonna assume that Adam has forgotten the weapon profiles of Grey Knight units, which was a little embarrassing, but that's okay. We can forgive him.
like a Riptide at toughness 9, or let's say it was let's say you're in the mirror match and you're fighting a Dread Knight at toughness 8. That +2 strength on the psi cannon is effectively +2 to wound, because you go from 5s to 4s to 3s at strength 9 into toughness 8. It's actually kind of...
I mean, my head went
massive.
to the Flamers, really. I was thinking
Yeah.
about the 4 Flamers and Overwatch and things like that. Getting that kind of combination might be pretty scary.
Absolutely there.
Great. Also, they've got a bunch of stratagems. The one we're going to look at is...
Well, my hope is that Grey Knights' psychic weapons don't have their profile even further reduced. But of course, it could be the case that we do see profile changes to the faction. It feels very unlikely to me. But, I mean, who fucking knows at this point?
It's called Focused Immolation. That basically lets you pick one of your purgation squads and they get devastating wounds and sustained hits.
This is wild. This is a
Fuck yeah.
very, very good ability. So it's your shooting phase, so you can't do this on the Overwatch, probably for the best. Is one command point, and your purgation squads kind of just do so much damage. Of course, sustain hits 1 mean...
I like that this is a detachment that focuses on only a single unit keyword, and they're just like, guys, we have to make this unit playable. +2 strength, sustained hits, devastating? Okay.
Means that the only time where this isn't at full efficiency is with the incinerators, because you don't roll to hit with the torrent weapons, so the sustain doesn't come into effect. But the torrent weapons
Also,
get
silencers don't get sustained hits because they already have it. So I don't know here.
hits, and therefore most likely have more rolls to generate the devastating wounds. So it kind of comes back around.
Yeah, it's a great combination either way, really.
I think it's magnificent. I think this is a really powerful ability. I love this detachment because purgation squads, just 2 units of 5 purgation squads is probably enough to give you the best of the debuffing potential here, while still having access to a huge swathe of very powerful
Yeah, it means you
things.
can immediately threaten 2 objectives, which is enough to swing the game in your favor. You can debuff 2 enemy units. You can do a huge amount of damage to them. Just a great combination.
What I love about it is that this is a unit, Purgation Squads, of course, working in with the teleport strike ability of the Grey Knights. It can be applied so many different times all over the table because you can deep strike down from reserve, arriving from reserve using your army ability, target something on an objective you don't have time to take care of that turn, and see if you can battle shock them. And then not only battle shock them, like I said, you're going to keep them in place as well because they're going to be much less likely to leave with the minus move. And then you pick them up. That unit.
Oh, that's a good call out, chat. Yeah, this affects the Stormbolters as well. I would go so far as to say I think that's actually worth it. You get 24 strength 6 sustain devastating, and you get like 12 like sustained devastating side cannon shots. Ooh, it's like expensive though. I don't know. So my hope here is that this stuff, like these very specific enhancements, are costed appropriately, because I do think, like we just talked about this paladin detachment, right? Which is like sweet, right? Suddenly we can actually get value out of our like hyper expensive elite infantry, which is great. If we're taking like a core detachment, I don't know what that's gonna look like. It depends on detachment points, like who knows. And these are 1-pointers, which I assume they are because they affect literally 1 unit. Then that 1 detachment point is a huge amount of investment, right? Because you're basically like choosing 1 specialist unit to get the benefits of. My hope is that these styles of upgrades that are meant to make like improve or like I guess like reclaim the data sheet, I hope this isn't like, oh, +2 strength on potentially 10 guys. That's 25 points, right? That would really, I think, go a long way to kill this detachment in a big way. My hope is that these upgrades, because you are already investing 1 detachment point for this, to make this unit good, these upgrades are very inexpensive, and so you can kind of assume that for a small points value upcharge, one of the benefits of this attachment is not only the battle shock effect, but also +2 strength. And if that's the case and you get a good stratagem for them, I think that's going to be great. My fear is that things like this will be like 15, 20, 25 points because anything that like strictly improves damage, Games Workshop has been very reticent to cost efficiently. Like if this is 5 to 10, this feels pretty good. But I'm worried that this gets like massively upcharged and that kills this whole detachment, right? So I hope that there's a consideration given to the fact that the detachment point itself is already an investment in this unit, and that allows these upgrades to be less expensive. But if that's the case, and you can like wombo all this stuff together, this does feel unironically pretty good.
And apply that pressure somewhere else when you maybe don't have time to do. I think
it's in the Grey Knight detachment.
A lot to unpack. So
I think it's relatively clear that you don't actually know what Purgation Squads do. So I think we're gonna move to teleport detachment. Cool.
1 to 2 units of 5. When a friendly from reserve this turn, it can use this ability. Not make an ingress move this shooting phase when a friendly interceptor squad has shot. If that unit did not make an ingress move this turn, as in did not arrive from reserve this turn, it can use this ability. If it does, that unit cannot use its personal teleporter ability, which is the move after shooting of 6
which
inches.
Stops you from charging as well, the normal ability.
You are spot on, mate. But instead of that, you make a surge move of D6 +1. And of course, this doesn't have any terms and conditions upon it. And of course, we know a surge move can put you into combat automatically. But in addition, this also doesn't say you can't charge after this move. And so this is a pseudo advance and charge, in addition to having a bunch of
that's
upside.
Sick. Wait, that's really cool. I'm I'm all in. Wait, that's like super cool. You can like wombo that with Banishers, right? Which already has. Oh, I guess it doesn't have advance and shoot. Yeah, okay. So you can't actually combo it with advance and charge unless you already have assault on your weapons, which you don't in that whole detachment. So fair enough, I guess. But in any case, this is better because not only do you get to shoot, but you move d6 plus 1. Your restriction is that the implication is that surge moves always move directly towards the closest enemy unit. We don't know what all of the what the full wording of the new surge mechanics are, because we know it is now a universal special rule rather than being a like weird thing that has a billion different versions on it. So who knows if this is going to be if it, exactly how this works, but in any case, this ability is really good. I don't know. No notes. Jesus. You love it.
Going directly into combat and avoiding some of the pitfalls, the reactive moves, and other things you can play around. It is a piece of tactical beauty for the savvy Grey Knight general and allows interceptors to function in a completely different way.
Yeah, so, I mean, on a very basic level, you could go 12 inches forward, you could shoot with those, let's say 30 of those models, then you could move d6 plus 1, then you could charge. So a really long threat range to both your shooting and to your potential charge range. And then they fight pretty well when they get there.
They fight like a Grey Knight fights. A bunch of attacks. It's at strength 6, AP 2, 2 damage. It's nothing. It is a profile fit for the vast majority of opponents.
Yeah. Again, there's some enhancements and some stratagems that make them even more durable and hit even harder. The enhancement we're going to look at is Astral Overlap, which gives the unit stealth.
Perfectly acceptable. Stealth is a fantastic ability. It's an upgrade, so you don't need to be, have a character to it because there is no character that can be attached to interceptors at this time. And just giving it stealth is fantastic. Why not?
And then a bunch of stratagems. The one that we've highlighted is Blades from the Beyond. That
I like that they skipped over that. They're like, it gives you stealth. All right. I guess the benefit here is that interceptors are very commonly pushing really far forward, and so making them very marginally harder to kill on the turn they commit is good. But again, it's you're paying points for that, and I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be relevant, but that's another thing where it's I hope that they do cost these appropriately, because this, if this was 15 points, you'd be like, who cares? Throw it in the garbage. But if this is 5, I'll buy that. All right, sure, whatever. Especially if I have points left over after I construct my list.
That is a stratagem that gives one of your units of interceptors Lance. So you already talked about investing heavily into this unit to be the combat unit, which isn't traditionally how it's been used, but actually is 10 guys, Nemesis Force Halberds, Lance. That's doing the work.
Like I said, strength 6 is the breakpoint that you operate at, and like I mentioned, with the +1 to wound.
This detachment's really good.
The previous detachment, the first one we covered, when you have +1 to wound,
just straight up solid.
6, it is that is the perfect strength applicator, because that means anything right up until 12, you're wounding on 4, which is the vast majority of the game. All of a sudden is 4s or better, and you might as well have anti-game 4+ as a keyword. It is that powerful. We have some detachments here which I like to talk about as things like accentuating forces that already exist. Like you have your teleport strike force, you have your banishers, so to speak, in your Grey Knight's Codex, and then there are ones that are accentuators to existing detachments. Immaterial Interdiction, I think, is strong enough that it stands on its own 2 feet and can be a defining.
Could be the linchpin of your army, basically. You could build around that as your main.
Yes, you could build around 3 squads of choice of your size of interceptors, which all of a sudden become the pressure and the aggressive pieces in your
Nobody
army.
wants flying psychic Lance Space Marines in their deployment zone on turn 1, do they?
The reason it's impactful is because you have a bunch of units that are going to be...
Yeah, the onboard threat rate is just fucking crazy when you think about it, right? This could be a 19-inch move after a disembark. So top 1, they could move potentially 22 inches. And then charge. Okay. I do think that there is the potential. Right now, we know that disembarking a transport is referred to as a disembarkation move. There is the potential that it gets commentaried or fact or something to be considered an ingress move. That's obviously not how the it seems the rules as written are, but that's like definitely it with the number of weird riders that Games Workshop likes to put on disembarking transports. That could be something that we see. So I don't want to necessarily have people be shocked if they can't do this outside of a transport and it's only onboard threat. But like currently, right, the implication is that this unit can just absolutely project itself a tremendous distance, a potential tremendous distance. It's also important to note as well that this dice roll is not re-rollable. At least to my knowledge, I don't believe the distance of surge moves is going to be in the command reroll stratagem. So this can be a pretty what's the word, inconsistent. It also is likely to require you to go in a particular direction. So it's not necessarily going to be like just exactly as good as D6 plus 1 additional move, but it is effectively D6 plus 1 additional threat range, which is good. It's also the case that if you surge move on your own turn, it basically is a charge. It doesn't give you the charge benefits, and it wouldn't give you Lance because you didn't actually make a charge move. But because the active player still chooses the first fighter in each phase, the just surging into someone in your own shooting phase actually lets you fight first into them. Which is it doesn't like literally let you fight first, but it lets you in the non-fight first step. It lets you be selected to be the first attacker. So the differences are very slight between being able to between surging into somebody and charging.
Arriving from reserve. Now, when you have a unit that applies pressure like these interceptors do, all of a sudden your opponent doesn't get to spread out the board. That impactful is because you have a bunch of units that are going to be arriving from reserve. Now, when you have a unit that applies pressure like these interceptors do, all of a sudden your opponent doesn't get to spread out the board and stop your deep strikes.
Yeah,
because you will just reach them with.
That's a really, really good point. Yeah, the play pattern for Grey Knights is extremely conducive to these like really aggressive units, and that's a reason that like you do see those banishers lists every once in a while doing fairly well with like the super long threat range interceptors, and they just constantly cycle interceptors into your expansion objectives. They clear out your screening, and then they flip the expansion objective, they drop your primary score, and then that opens up board space for them to drop other stuff later. This might be one of like those spots where like legitimately taking several of these detachments together might be good. In the previous articles, it's felt like kind of a pipe dream where it's like, well, you could take 3 different detachments and one of them makes your bloat drones good and one of them works on plague breeds, and you're like, okay, man, like what am I building here? Like I don't understand. But like being able to basically jail someone with interceptors to open space to then clear the resulting utility with purgation squads that would then allows you to ingress paladins into the midboard feels actually really strong if you wanted to play all these three together. Now, if you are able to play something like Warpbane Task Force alongside these, although the scuttlebutt is right now that Warpbane Task Force is 3 detachment points, I believe, so you wouldn't be able to combine it with any of these, which is unfortunate, but does make sense. So I don't know, we'll see.
And kill them in combat. And because when you apply that kind of pressure, the board opens up for your army rules to really take effect, and all of a sudden you have access to the backfield, the front field, the objectives, the actions. I think this is formative. I think this is extremely powerful. Cannot wait to see what the Savvy General does with the Grey Knights.
Amazing. Well, Adam, thank you so much for your insights and thoughts. That was Grey Knights. We will be back very soon with another Warhammer 40,000 faction focus.
They did talk about Warpbane Task Force. Working with Purifier squads, second spearhead boost vehicles, new 1 point attachments are a great way to add an extra angle to your battle plan. If you are able to use those alongside Warpbane Task Force, that'd be actually wild. I guess like all for making factions more powerful. It would, I don't know. Warpbane Task Force is so good that it would, these other abilities would feel a little superfluous if Warpbane Task Force is a 2 detachment point detachment. But we shall see, chat. That's the rumor that I heard is that it's going to 3, so we'll see. But yeah, because I think you would just take Warpbane Task Force with whatever type of like utility clearing you want to take. Do you want to take interceptors? Do you want to take reroll hit interceptors with Lance that run up the table? Do you want to take the purgation squads with hit rerolls and sustained hits? The world's your oyster. Take your pick, boys. We'll see. Teleport Strike Force? Warpbane Task Force? I don't know what we're talking about. Teleport Strike Force. We do not have detachment points for the current detachment. The scuttlebutt, what they've said on basically every other article is that the codex attachments are 2, and then these new detachments are 1. But we don't know, with the revelation that some digital release attachments are returning, we don't know what their cost is. So who knows? They did showcase this psychic rule, which is just different than the psychic rule they've talked about previously in the Q&A. Which is, I'm not shocked about this, because they did talk about psychic in a previous article, and I can't remember which one it was, but they did talk about it as explicitly ignoring hit modifiers. And then in the Q&A, they talked about it also ignoring wound modifiers, and now they're showcasing that it only ignores hit modifiers. I thought the wound modifier thing was a little bit weird, but I was like, all right, I guess so. In fairness, it's not the craziest effect of all time, right? Like, there's not a lot of -1 to wounds in the game right now. It would be like you fight against Wrath of the Rock, or there's Blade of Ultramar or something that has this -1 to wound if your strength is higher than their toughest characteristic, that kind of stuff. Where ignoring on that would be very strong. But there's a rationale for psychic ignoring hit modifiers, which is that you can read their minds, right? I know where you are. You can't hide and cover because I'm attacking your brain, essentially, which makes a lot of sense. Why that would ignore -1 to wound, I don't know. But I do like the, I think it would make sense that it ignores cover and hits and stuff like that, because you're able to track them more easily or something. Ignoring wound modifiers did feel a little bit incongruous. But it is obnoxious that it's another case of them citing rules that don't exist, which is, we all do it, right? It's hard to remember all the rules in Warhammer 40k, but we're, us lay people in our living rooms or whatever aren't trying to promote this new rule system that we are then about to sell you in $100 hardback book. So I don't know. It is frustrating. It's just another example of this preview cycle being kind of fucked, unfortunately. But in any case, like I said, I don't think it was the craziest thing in the world if they did or did not ignore wound modifiers. I just wish that we could get consistent rules for these things. So who fucking knows? But the clarification that it does ignore ballistic skill and weapon skill characteristic modifiers in addition to hit roll modifiers, so it does conclusively ignore cover and any defensive effects that you might have that affect the hit roll, is awesome. Stonk's massively up for literally any primarily psychic faction. Magnus the Red gets Prima ignore cover on all his guns. Every single Thousand Sun Sorcerer, Lords of Change, Zoanthropes, Maleceptors, these huge breadth of psychic units that in some cases have been kind of maligned in 10th edition because the psychic keyword was strictly a debuff. And being able to having those attacks be that much more consistent is fucking enormous. I think this breathes new life into Tyranids. I am a little worried about Chaos Demons. Unironically, I think Chaos Demons might be broken. We'll see. There's a weird thing that happens with the new charge rules where you 6-inch ingresses now require a 7-inch charge. So that hopefully can stymie their power a little bit, but I am worried about a mass faction of guys who benefit from the new cover rules where they didn't before, and have like unparalleled mobility, and have is almost entirely psychic attacks. I think there's a universe where that gets really degenerate. Hopefully that's not the case, but I do think that certainly might happen. In any case, though, I do think it is definitely a new lease on life for units like these guys, where previously they were massively impacted by cover, their attacks were inconsistent, and now they don't. You know, your opponent is not only not getting the +1 save from cover, but they're also now not getting the -1 to be hit from cover. So you're basically just like strictly superior, which is awesome. I think it's cool. So we'll see. Malice Scepter can now be in combat and fire out without penalty. Is that the case? Did they does big guns never tire not give you -1 to hit? Oh, I guess it's because the psychic weapon doesn't. The psychic keyword says it doesn't. Yeah, I guess that's true. It just can't fire into its own combat, which is the case. I don't know why I just brain farted so bad there. The other thing too is that what's gonna take a second for it to like wrap my head around is that psychic weapons now no longer degrade. So like if I'm Magnus and I'm on 2 wounds, I shoot just as good as I did when I was at full wounds because I ignored the -1 to hit penalty from being degraded. So, which I don't know if that necessarily makes sense. That might make less sense than a regular tank having a degraded hit roll, or ignoring a degraded hit roll or something. But it is what it is. That is the rule. But yeah, being engaged with psychic weapons and being able to shoot out is actually sick. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even grok. But that is incredibly good. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think there's a bunch of stuff that ignoring the hit modifiers is gonna impact, which is huge. We'll see. We'll see how things go. I'm wondering like how hard because cover was so, I would say, unreasonably strong in 10th edition. It feels like they are like -1 ballistic skill is not as powerful an effect as +1 save, in my opinion, because there are so many ways around -1 ballistic skill. There's a bunch of ignore modifiers. There's a bunch of hit rerolls. There's a bunch of hit bonuses. Like the game just has a million ways to fix your hit roll. So cover impacting the hit roll is generally speaking not as good than cover impacting the save characteristic, which had very, very few ways to interact with. At the same time, they've also pulled back on, or they've injected a billion things into the game that gives you the ability to ignore cover. And the psychic keyword is a good example of that. I do wonder if it is an overcorrection, because they've basically like 2-for-1'd a little bit here, right? They've taken cover from being this like universal, like wildly effective mechanic. They've neutered it to being less effective, and then also further neutered it by giving you ways to work around it. I also think it's going to be more difficult to apply. I don't know this for sure, but I have a suspicion that like infantry units and small things will have to either be entirely in cover, or like the majority of the units going to have to be in terrain or something like that to get the benefit of cover. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but the fact that cover applies to the whole unit, not a model anymore, speaks to me that it's going to be more difficult for like 10 dudes to get the benefit of cover. So it's also probably going to be less applied in fewer circumstances too. And I don't know necessarily if like we as a community have internalized the fact that you might just not play with cover at all. Like a whole game, you may just never get the benefit of cover. And going from cover always applying until you say it doesn't, to cover basically never applying until you say it does, and also it's worse. I think like the damage boost armies are about to see is phenomenal. It's going to be biblical. 11th edition so far feels hyper lethal compared to 10th. Obviously, it's not even close to being like as crazy as things were in like 8th or 9th, but I think we are heading into a format in the beginning of the edition where things are just going to fucking die and I'm here for it. I like it when things die, but other people might not like that. And I think it's you should be prepared for things to get blown up. So we'll see how it goes. The fact that AP1 does something now is huge. Yeah, I agree for sure. Yeah. Quick games are good. I'm in. I'm so in. They did talk about how like the actual gameplay of 11th edition is probably faster than 10th, which I am here for. I think 10th edition was too slow, like just wildly too slow. The amount, like the number of clockouts we've seen in like competitive games, like recently, is just crazy because people are like just hyper analyzing every single board state and then like playing for bottom of round 5. And then they said that like you lose that time because setup is harder, which I don't super love, but it is what it is. Do I think the new cover rule will kill Recon? God, I hope so. Straight up, fuck that archetype. It's so stupid. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Overall, I'm excited for it, chat. I'm excited for the game to be quicker and more lethal and more interesting. I think it's going to be fun. And we'll see how like the new mission mechanics and stuff work into that. It might be that like you're disincentivized from playing hyper aggressively just because of the primary objectives. Like if I'm playing, you know, an action centric primary, and my opponent gets to force dispo into playing a purge, and then I try to jail them with my interceptors that move 19 inches, and then they just get a bunch of points for purging me. Like you know, suddenly this isn't quite as exciting. So we'll see how we go. They have to change the feel no pain multi-wound issue. I agree with that for sure. I mean, they are changing sort of fundamentally how the attack sequence works, because now it's constructed around fast dice rolling everything. Hopefully that is a meaningful change and it's not just like changing some nomenclature around, but they do have things like, you know, there is like a form attack pool step and stuff like that, which I'm hopeful for. I'm hopeful that it things resolve more quickly. We'll see. Table your opponent turn 1 to 3 and then score action secondaries later. Yeah, well, I mean the there is the case that like primary will include a lot more actions, right? Is the thing. So it could be that, if we're gonna play Echo Jump or whatever this is called, Immaterial Interdiction, and we're gonna play this alongside Warpaint Task Force, they just give all of those force dispositions like really action centric primary missions, right? Where it's like, well, the goal is for you to perform a bunch of actions, and you're like, well, I mean, I would like to just charge people to get points, and the primary says no. Then suddenly, like, you have this contradiction inside your force construction, like your force dispositions, which could mean that combination is less effective than it would be if you could simply like play purge. But we'll see. I don't even know that for sure. So 19 inches if you move, if you roll a 6 on a d6 plus 1 and you move 12, you go 19 inches. So we'll see. Just yeet 30 interceptors, yeah. I mean, they cross the board, right? If you roll a 6, in fairness, the average movement from the surge plus your movement is like 16. It essentially becomes 19 from your deployment zone if you deploy rhinos on the table. If you like deploy rhinos on the line and then just like eat, then you are probably pushing like 5 or 6 inch charges, but your opponent also knows that's coming. So they'll screen out with stuff. They can put shit in the way. You have to dock movement from these guys to move over intervening screening units now. Not to mention the fact that screens actually fuck this mechanic super hard, because if you have screening models and then you move forward and you shoot them with the interceptors, there's a strong likelihood that the echo jump just engages the screening unit, so you can't shoot them with the second unit, and also you're just stuck in melee now, you can't charge anything else. So like there's a bunch of counterplay. I'm not going to say that this is like just the most broken mechanic already of all time or anything. Like, it's not automatically engaging your opponent. If there's a bunch of infiltrators in the center of the battlefield, you can actually like pull them in weird directions too, potentially. Assuming that the new surge moves don't let you do like the fan surge that you have currently, where one guy goes to the target and then everyone else goes wherever they want. We'll see if that mechanic sticks around. You can 7-inch deep strike. I don't know what that is. Yeah, I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic, chat. I do think that the terrain layouts that we've seen so far, like, I think it's definitely worth considering in combination with the terrain. Let me pull up those terrain layouts again, because the terrain layouts that we've seen so far are like hyper defensive, right? So I think the idea that there is go back. See if I can find the article that has the terrain layouts in it. Yeah, here we go. So the idea that like you have the capacity to tangle with your opponent early. God, this doesn't work at all. Will this work? No, not really. All right. Ooh. There we go. Like, you have the capacity to engage your opponent early, but doing so isn't necessarily like optimal play because they are so defensive, right? Like, even if I'm running 1,000,000 inches across the table, I can't interact here with ranged attacks. I can't interact here with ranged attacks. These are positions where my opponent can hide important stuff, and they can hide stuff that's resilient to the profiles that I have that are threatening them top of one, whereas they are threatening all the objectives of the midboard. So, I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic, chat. I do think, like, I would prefer my opponent try to get a melee alpha on me top of one than a ranged alpha, and it does feel to me like ranged alphas are going to be very difficult. Just because of like how defensive these features are, right? Like, if I have like super fast stuff, I could go into like this terrain feature, like this of the expansion objective, to try to shoot this direction, but I have to be super fast, right? I have to move like 20 inches to do that. So if I like scout and then have advance and shoot or something, and I can get in there, then maybe I can make that attack. But in that case, I'm just in threat range, like in melee threat range of the stuff that's inside this L, for example. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. I think it does feel like a knife fight edition. I do think it's gonna be like majority of engagements are gonna be at like 12 inches of people, which is kind of the case for 10th edition in a lot of cases. But this feels even more so, unless some of the layouts are more open than the ones we've seen so far. But who knows? I mean, we'll just have to see. Again, like I said, am cautiously optimistic. We'll see how it goes. The one thing I will say, though, is that I do think ranged attacks are going to have a benefit of clearing, being able to clear objectives more easily. Because in order to hold an objective, you now have to be inside it, which means unless these true line of sight blockers are really, really effective, it is likely that you're just going to be able to shoot my guys who are inside the objective and clear it every turn. And I do think, like, I think they said something in the Q&A. Somebody was like, is shooting dead? Shooting seems so bad in this edition. And this came from somewhere, but I think at some point somebody had said that like shooting at one point during playtesting was far too strong and they had to run it. They had to like pull back on it. So we'll see if that ends up materializing. So yeah. Anyway, folks, I think that's going to be it for me today. If I'm a Grey Knight player, I would be super excited because these rules seem great. The Purgation squads might be great. Paladin squads might be great. Who knows? Interceptor squads, I think, almost certainly are great. Lance and fucking D6+1 additional movement, crazy bonuses for a unit that already moves 12 and hits at 2 damage in melee. Just as a utility squad, if you pay 1 detachment point and you just take 3 units of 5 interceptors, and your units of 5 interceptors are fucking fast as hell and can just clear out, like, and I can just sit in my home objective and then clear, like, sit back here and just clear this objective every turn with 5 interceptors. Fucking awesome. this attachment's immediately going to be good. So I think there's definitely the case that happens. So yeah, I don't know. I would be excited if I was a Grey Knight player, and we'll see how Warpaint Task Force fares. But with that, folks, I think that's going to be it for me. Thanks everyone for hanging out and watching, and I will see you tomorrow. What's our faction focus tomorrow? Drukhari. Hopefully, Drukhari's cool. I don't know. We'll see. Cool. Cheers, everybody.